Hello everyone, Earl Henderson here with Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. Today's video is going to be about a shooting incident that occurred at O'Charlie's Restaurant in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I have two guests with me today who were there at the night of the shooting and got involved in the incident. You will get to hear them talk about their experience and some of their post-incident thoughts, as well as some actions or changes they have decided to take after this incident. This video will give the synopsis of the shooting incident in a bit of a timeline form, and it will branch off into two main categories of talking points. One category will be responding to armed incidents, and the second will revolve around pre-hospital care, or TCCC. My guests today are Mason and his wife Alex. They were there the night of the shooting and got involved with the incident. Before we delve into their involvement, I want to introduce them and talk a little bit about them. So, Mason, who are you?
So I've been in Bowling Green for going on 29 years now. Joined the National Guard when I was, 26. Been in there for 3 years now. Work at Holly Performance. Other than that, not really a whole lot.
My name is Alexandria. I am from New Mexico and I moved down here about 2012, 2013. Kind of just moved around. My dad's retired military. I work at Advanced Auto Parts, and I've got 2 children with Mason.
All right. So we'll just jump into it. We're going to get into the details of the incident. Before I start, all the information I'm about to discuss is all open source information that can be readily found on news media outlets. I'm not disclosing any confidential information from police files. Just want to put that out there in case some admin person wants to go on a witch hunt. The information that Mason and Alex are going to discuss is what they saw with their own eyes. On January 24th, 2020 is the day this incident occurred. It took place late into the evening at O'Charlie's Restaurant on Scottsville Road. So O'Charlie's is this building here, and this is Scottsville Road. Going in this direction is the interstate, and going in this direction is Bowling Green. Scottsville Road, for those of you who are not from this area, is kind of like a large or a very long business road with lots of restaurants and businesses on either side of it. This big parking lot right here that you can see is part of the large Greenwood Mall. It's just a big business shopping area and restaurant area. Inside O'Charlie's that night, a person by the name of Paige Russell was sitting at the bar and observed a person by the name of Nicholas Roby sitting in a booth with another person. Paige has alleged that she was the victim of an unreported robbery that Roby was involved in about a year ago. After observing Roby, Paige made contact on her phone, which resulted in Michael Russell and his friend Terry Stice arriving at O'Charlie's. After these two men arrived at the restaurant, Terry Stice went up to Roby and asked him if he knew who the Paige girl was. Roby denied having any knowledge of her. Afterwards, Paige herself confronted Roby, and he denied having any knowledge of her. Paige allegedly said something to the effect of, "Tonight you're going to remember me." Roby at some point contacted a person by the name of Elijah Taylor to come to O'Charlie's. Taylor drove from Franklin, Kentucky to Bowling Green. At some point, a physical altercation occurred outside the restaurant, and Elijah Taylor shot Michael Russell. Terry Stice then fired at Taylor. Taylor was struck about 3 times and was later pronounced dead at the scene. Roby then hit Stice with an SUV and knocked Stice to the ground. Stice fired multiple rounds at the fleeing SUV that had Roby and another person inside of it. The SUV left the scene and didn't return until later after the police were all there. Stice ended up leaving the scene shortly afterwards after firing his last rounds, and later ended up throwing his gun into a field on Three Springs Road somewhere. As of this recording, the gun has not been recovered yet. That night, police collected about 12 casings from the scene. Michael Russell ended up dying the next day. So after Stice fired his gun at the fleeing SUV is when Mason and his wife decided to take action. They were over here at Crystal's, and I'll just kind of let them take over about what they was doing and how they got over here.
So it was about 10 o'clock when we pulled into Crystal's and we were in the drive-through, and at 10:02 was when we heard the first shots. I originally turned my head towards the direction that I heard the shot come from, and even remember having time to think, was that a firework? Shortly after that thought processed, it was when I heard a double tap come from the part of the parking lot on this side,
Use this if you want.
closest to like the Longhorn, which this is Longhorn right here, parking lot. After I heard the double tap, that's when it registered like those are gunshots. And then about another 3 or 4 seconds went by, and that's when I saw a black SUV come to a halt and then take off really fast in the parking lot right in front right here. And when it got to about this area right here on the front side was when I heard an array of gunfire. I would guess 8 to 12 rounds. Didn't really count, but it was after I heard those shots cease that I looked at Alex and I said, we got to go over there and help. With my training in the National Guard, I've obviously got, combat training, firearms training, first aid training. So, it wasn't really anything I had to think about. It's just I kind of threw it in drive and headed straight over there. Just an action that I reacted with. My first thought was, somebody shot, somebody's gonna need help. So I originally pulled out of the drive-through here and took a right and went here where there's a stoplight, and I had to wait for the light to turn green, which was probably about 30 seconds. But in that situation, you can imagine probably felt like an eternity. Once it turned, I just floored it down this strip right here and took a left between O'Charlie's and the mall parking lot and entered here.
All right, so we'll go ahead and flip the page and go into the zoomed in part.
All right. Once we entered here, I got to about right there and put it in park. At this point, I had my 9mm Springfield sitting in my lap, as didn't know what I was going to walk up on. Got out of the vehicle with sidearm in hand, and first thing I saw was Taylor's vehicle parked right here with the front car door open, and he was laying face down. Looking at it, it didn't take a doctor to realize there was probably not much we could do for him. There was just a big puddle of blood he was laying in. So then I turned my attention to Russell, which was about right here. I would say probably about 25 to 30 feet from where Taylor was. He was actually shot in the abdomen area.
So, put this down here.
About right in here. Reports came out and actually said that the bullet traveled downward and entered the back of his thigh about right here, which was the bullet wound that I personally saw. Alex actually saw the wound on the abdomen area or the groin area. So I immediately took his belt off of him and went to wrap it around as high as I could above the exit wound. Wasn't really a whole lot I could do on the abdomen wound, but as soon as I was about to tighten that up, that's when Bowling Green Police first unit showed up, and he saw I was administering first aid, so he immediately went to the trunk of his vehicle and grabbed a first aid kit and actually applied a tourniquet. Other than that, that's really all I got. Alex, you got anything to add?
So to be exact, to show you where the bullet entered, it was about right in here, and it actually exited way down here. at first they didn't think that the bullet went all the way through, but it did. I helped roll Russell onto his side to where he was more comfortable and just tried to keep him alert and awake. Asked him if he could remember anything at all. I just kind of had to keep him up in my lap and just talk to him and tried to calm his wife down. She was very scared and just didn't know what to do. So trying to keep him awake and keep her calm was a little stressful, but I do fairly good under pressure. Seeing Taylor, you could clearly see that they weren't going to be able to do anything for him. I mean, he was pretty sure it was just his nerves that were still moving. I don't think it was him himself. But just seeing a puddle of blood and brain matter on the ground isn't the best sight in the world, for sure. They tried to revive him, but it was definitely way too late. The only bullet wound that I seen on Elijah Taylor was a gunshot to the neck. I didn't see any on the head, but of course the first time I seen him he was face down, so I couldn't really see anything on the back of his head. I just kind of had to stay inside of the lines with the police and stuff until they got him up on a bed and got him out, and then they started questioning everybody, and we just kind of hung out there for about an hour so everybody could get questions answered. That's really
Okay.
all I've got.
All right. So you were over at the Crystals, and you said you initially thought it was just like fireworks going off.
Yeah, like
until
because it
you-
was just a single shot. So I was like literally, my first thought was, who is firing fireworks at 10 o'clock on a Friday night?
And then you heard multiple rounds, and you knew it was not fireworks.
Right.
Did you have any first thoughts about what it could be? Did you think maybe it was an active shooter, just someone defending themselves, like a drug deal gone bad, like someone just trying to murder a person for no reason?
I mean, being where it was at, I mean, in today's time with, as rampant as the drugs are, I mean, yeah, I think that's obvious. But honestly, like with it being at O'Charlie's, drugs is not really the first thing that entered my mind. Active shooter was a potential case. But when I saw the double tap come from the other side of the parking lot and saw the muzzle flashes, that's when I kind of realized, like, okay, this is just probably two people shooting at each other and not an active shooter situation.
Okay. And you went and got involved, and you said that you had to go do something. And I'll touch on that on later. But you had that drive to want to go help somebody. And you said that you had a pistol with you. Did you have any other fighting gear with you?
I had an AR-15 in the back of the SUV.
Okay. Any other like support gear with any of that or anything like that?
No, no other tactical gear other than my sidearm and my rifle.
Okay. And then you said you had your pistol out when you got out of your vehicle? Mm-hmm. All right. At some point you had to put the gun away, and you put it away before police arrived?
No, I actually I had gym shorts on. It was actually pretty chilly that night, so I was pretty cold. But I actually just tucked it in my waistband of my gym shorts while I was administering first aid. And then once the police got there and I knew that they kind of had the situation taken care of from there, that's when I walked back to my vehicle and I put my sidearm back in the vehicle.
Okay. And you didn't have any medical gear with you?
No, it's one of those things where you really do say, it's probably never going to happen to me. Well, it did. It might not have been directly with me involved, but it was close enough to me to where I knew I could at least offer some sort of help, whether it be, ending a threat or administering first aid. So it was one of those things where after the situation, of course, you tell yourself, like, wow, I was really unprepared for that. So Needless to say, a 250-piece first aid kit has been ordered, and it's going in the back of the car to stay.
When police did arrive, how did they treat you? Did they treat everyone as if there was a possible threat at first? How did that interaction go?
The first officer that arrived on scene, like I said, he got out and saw me administering first aid. So his first response was to go to his trunk and get a first aid kit. I wouldn't say I was treated as a suspect. I think they kind of realized I was just trying to help. Once they kind of got the tourniquet on and everything, the first responding officer just asked me to wait so he could come get a statement from me. Once he kind of got done, getting everything situated with Russell, that's when he came over. He questioned somebody else before me. I'm not even sure who it was, but after that, then he came over and questioned me, and we were actually standing, I guess, right where Russell or Stice had fired the rally of rounds at the SUV because I'd stepped on a shell casing. And I told the officer, I was like, I think I need to move back a little bit further. We got shell casings here. So that's when they kind of expanded their crime scene over there and taped it off. And then the first responding officer got my statement before one of the crime scene detectives talked to me. Okay.
And when you was there with Russell, rendering aid to him, you didn't have any gloves to wear. You were going to use his belt as an improvised tourniquet, but you didn't have a chance to put it all the way on.
Right. Yeah, I just started to get it to wrapped around the top part of his thigh above the exit wound, and right as I was running it through the belt loop to yank on it to put pressure, that's when the police officer arrived, and he was like, "No, don't worry about it. I've got an actual tourniquet."
Okay. Did his mental status appear to stay the same throughout it, or did he start to have an altered mental status or lose consciousness?
He was very pale. He was aware when I first got there, and then as I was, trying to apply the tourniquet, and even when the police officer was actually putting on the actual tourniquet, I noticed his eyes started to kind of roll. And I think that's when he started to kind of lose consciousness. And I kind of just shook him a little bit and said, "Hey, stay with us, man, stay with us." And just tried to keep him awake and aware.
So this parking lot, it's 10 o'clock at O'Charlie's. Is it full parking lot? Is this place busy?
There was quite a few cars parked in the front right here. I would say there's probably as many cars that you see in this image right here there that night.
Okay. And when you got there, the only people outside was Russell and his wife?
Russell, his wife, and the two in the SUV had already fled. Stice had already fled, and obviously Taylor. Everybody from that was in O'Charlie's remained in O'Charlie's, and they even locked the doors.
Okay.
Nobody came out.
All right, so it's just you two, Russell, his wife, the deceased, and that was it.
Yeah. Now, eventually, we ended up getting some people from Longhorn that walked over just to kind of say "Hey, what happened?" But
rubberneckers.
Yeah.
So some time had expired between all these rounds being fired. You having to wait 30 seconds of that red light getting over here. There's nobody doing anything. Not a thing.
No.
But you get here and you start trying to render first aid, but you got a whole building full of people who are not out there rendering aid. I just that sticks out to me when you said that you had to go do something. There's not that many people out there who would take that initiative to go help, especially go towards where the sound of gunfire is. So I just kind of want to commend you on that. Do you think the police could have probably treated you a little bit different if they had showed up and you had a gun in your hand?
Oh, absolutely. If they would have noticed that I had a gun, I'm pretty sure I would have had every officer on scene pointing a gun at me, telling me to get on the ground and drop the gun. And I'm sure, I would have been handcuffed and detained and questioned before being released. So, things could have definitely been different. That's why I wanted to make sure I didn't have it visible when they showed up, because I didn't want them to fear for their own safety. That's definitely not what you want to happen in that situation.
Backing up to the Taylor guy, could you see his gun where it was at?
Yeah, so when I got there, he was laying about right here in front of like his car door was open, and he was laying face down right beside his car, and his gun was probably right at the trunk area. So somebody had kicked it away before I got there. Stice, maybe his wife, I don't know. But his gun was definitely at least 3 or 4 feet away from where he was laying.
Did you have any thoughts about what if he tried to wake up and finish the job, or was it just an obvious sign of death that he's not getting back up?
Man, it was, you watch movies like Black Hawk Down and you think, oh, it's just a movie. Hollywood gets it pretty accurate. It was gruesome. There was a lot of blood, and like Alex touched on, there was a little bit of brain matter on the ground. So it was one of those things that definitely screws with you, especially if it's your first time seeing something like that in person. I wouldn't say I was scared of him getting up. I pretty much knew he was down for the count.
Okay. So having seen all this stuff, has it kind of had maybe some type of negative impact on you as far as trouble sleeping? Like you see the images in your head, that kind of stuff, or?
I don't really think about it as much now that, a little bit of time's gone by, but the first few days, yeah, it was pretty rough. It was hard to sleep that night and the couple nights after. Throughout the day, at work, that's all I was picturing. So yeah, it kind of messed with me a little bit. I know it messed with Alex a little bit too, so it's definitely nothing that I hope nobody else has to go through, because it's pretty scarring. But as for all the Second Amendment stuff going on with them trying to restrict the Second Amendment, if anything, it does not change my opinion on that. This is a prime example of why we need the right to bear arms.
Absolutely.
Mainly because, and I don't want to, make Stice to be a bad guy, but convicted felons shouldn't have had a firearm. That goes to show right there, convicted felons are always going to be able to get their hands on firearms. There's not a way around it.
Absolutely.
That being said, it's one of those things where, what if he hadn't have had it that night?
Yeah. Sure.
It would have probably been him and Russell both dead on the ground. So it's kind of like a catch-22, man. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you mentioned you have ordered a first aid kit. So that's some changes that you're going to be making to your EDC or your vehicle equipment.
Yeah, so it's actually, I got it off Amazon. It's the brand is Everlit. It's a 250-piece survival first aid kit. It was $40. It came with everything. I mean, it comes with knife, glow sticks, gloves, bandages, gauze, camo carry case, all that stuff. The only thing it didn't have was a tourniquet, so I ended up buying just a 2-pack tourniquet kit too. One to keep on my tactical vest, and then one to keep in the first aid kit.
Okay. So that's the medical stuff that you're going to be getting, and you just plan on keeping that in your vehicle?
Yeah, that's going to stay in the back of my SUV with my AR.
Okay. And what about your EDC type of gear, like holster? Like, have you given any thought about if you're going to be in gym clothes, you're going to get like a belly band holster to utilize, or?
Typically, I don't just go out in gym shorts. It was just one of those things where we had just got done working out at the gym. I don't really plan on. I have alien gear holsters and everything for like when I'm wearing actual pants. That keeps my sidearm pretty concealed. So I don't know. I probably won't do any type of special holster for like gym shorts or anything like that, just because I don't find myself to be in a situation very often where I'm wearing gym shorts.
Yeah. Okay. So did you have any, going back into the traumatic incident? Did you have any, I guess, maybe remorse about the fact that he ended up dying later? Did you have any like guilt, like, oh, was there more I could have done, or
honestly,
did any of those thoughts occur?
I think that's what's bothering me more than the image of what I saw when I arrived. The more I think about it, and even for Elijah Taylor's sake, and I talked to my mom about this. He buried his daughter 5 months ago. Can't imagine having to bury one of my girls. So the anger, the sadness that he must have been feeling even 5 months later. I told my mom, I was like, this situation could have just been what flipped the switch. And I said, we don't really know what he's going through. I said, if he was alive for a few seconds after he got shot, it was probably one of those things where, hey, I know I'm dying. And, he was alone, scared. And that's where my heart hurts for him and his family. At least Russell had his wife and his daughter there with him. So it's one of those things, like, my heart was heavy for, the Elijah Taylor family. But at the same time, it hurts for the Russell family because, they lost a dad and a husband. As for if there's anything more I could do, not really. When you look at, this right here and seeing all the main...
Yeah, that's what I
arteries.
wanted to get into.
Yeah.
Some people kind of have some guilt or remorse sometimes when they go to a traumatic incident and they try to help someone, that person ends up dying.
Yeah.
So you had indicated that a possible entry wound was right around this region. So one thing maybe a lot of people don't know about is within this pelvic region, it is full of
Oh, yeah.
of arteries.
Arteries.
There is no amount of stuff you could do just as a regular layperson that's really going to help anybody who has one of these arteries inside here severed by a projectile. You're going to have some advanced medical life support training to be able to do anything for that person. And you said the shots were about 10:02ish.
Yeah, 10:02 is
So
the first one.
when was the ambulance getting there?
Honestly, man, I made a comment about how the FBI stated that average police time, like response time to situations, is about 15 minutes. First off, I want to commend the Bowling Green Police Department. Shots happened at 10:02. I was on scene probably 5 minutes before the cops got there. A response time of 5 to 8 minutes. I was impressed. And I mean, they were rolling in deep. I mean, probably every cop on duty that night was there. I really want to commend them on their response time that night. Ambulance took a little while to get there.
Okay.
Fire department showed up before ambulance did.
Well, even our fire department, a lot of people don't realize this. Our fire departments, their firefighters are EMT trained.
Yes, that is true.
That's why if there's like any type of chest pain call or difficulty breathing call, you're going to see a fire truck there.
Right.
Because they got EMTs on board. So the fire truck, how soon was it there?
It rolled in probably 2 minutes after the first police units did.
So there was some medical care being given pretty quick. So even with him getting some pretty quick medical care and then being taken to the hospital, there's still not that much that could have been done. And that's something that some people need to realize is no matter what you do, people are still going to die.
Right.
To treat, injuries within this area, you need something like a junctional tourniquet.
Right.
And these things are like close to $500. And as you can see, they're pretty large. It's not something you'd be carrying in your back pocket or anything like that. And then plus you got to know how to use devices like this, especially if like the SAM junctional tourniquet, know where to put that around the inguinal ligaments, or how to apply a abdominal aortic tourniquet. It's not just something that you just learn in a regular first aid class. Like paramedics, they spend a long time learning this stuff.
And just to give you an idea of this device, I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that right there tells you. And I'm in the military, and I don't even know that existed.
But going forward, I mean, there are a couple improvising things you could do. You could certainly just put a knee right in this area and just hold your knee down on it, put all your body weight on there. Even if you're going to be trying to put like a regular tourniquet on a person, high and tight into the leg, you can still just go ahead and ram your knee down in that leg if you don't have an actual good tourniquet, and hopeful that your body weight will be able to occlude some of that blood flow. But other than that, man, like, you did all that you could do, and without knowing what the autopsy report says or any definitive medical knowledge, this very well could have been the case of no matter what anybody was going to do, he was going to die just due to the injuries that he incurred. So going into responding to incidents like this, I just kind of categorized it as responding to shots fired incidents. Things to think about and consider if you're going to be responding to things like that. Who or what are you? Are you a uniformed professional, either a police officer, security, or military, or something like that? Are you plainclothes professional? Are you an off-duty cop, off-duty security? Are you just a regular armed citizen? And what is if you're just an armed citizen, what is your training level? Do you have some degree of training or no training at all? Those are factors that need to go into play when considering to even trying to get involved in things that are going on. What do you see? What's going on? Who are they? Is this an active shooter event? Is this a terrorist attack? Is it just two dudes fighting it out over something stupid? Is it a robbery in progress? Like, outside looking in, you don't know what's going on to begin with. For people who want to help and do things, those are things to think about. What's your role? Who are you? And are you going to be helping or causing problems? Your response options are going to be dictated by your EDC. If you're a uniformed police or uniformed security, you're going to have your fighting gear on you. You're going to have extra magazines to sustain that gunfight if it goes into a large gunfight. Armed citizen, you just got one magazine in the gun. Do you have a rifle that you could utilize to really stop that fight? Those are things that need to be taken into consideration. One thing that I was thinking about from a response-wise from like uniformed police or uniformed security was, let's say, same kind of tabletop scenario. Let's just change up the location or the facts or something like that. On-duty police over here on his lunch break or something like that. Stuff's going on over here. Would it be more advantageous for someone to get the rifle out and make a shot? And then, people say, oh, well, there's a roadway and there's this and that. I would encourage people to check out a video out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where an officer had responded to a shooting. A guy was shot outside of some type of...
CC's Pizza, I believe.
Yeah, CC's Pizza.
I watched that. That was a great video.
Yeah, dude he was on foot for a while. And
the training, he waited for the gap in traffic. And, it blows my mind that citizens see somebody run across the interstate and see a cop posted up on a barrier, and they still are driving in the line of fire. It just blew my mind. But
I probably didn't recognize them.
But the training though, and the self-control. And that cop, I think they ended up tracking it. He ran a big lap around it.
Yeah, he was.
I think it was like a mile. He ended up running with full gear and an AR. That takes some wind out of you. And he still had the calmness to post up, take a deep breath, wait for traffic to break, and boom, fire off a shot and hit the dude in one shot.
Hey, he fired more than one shot. I think he ended up firing 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that video, probably the width of that highway is probably very similar to our Scottsville Road. It was like a 2-lane kind of roadway going one direction with a concrete divider in the middle and a 2-lane roadway going the other direction. And it wasn't just a straight across thing, it was like a diagonal thing. So there was some pretty good distance there. So for the uniform cops watching, that's something you need to look at training and everything. Training is always going to be obviously very important. It's something you always need to be considering, especially, Canton versus Harris. Plainclothes, going directly to the scene in plainclothes, that offers or brings up some difficulties. If you're in a uniform, whether you're uniformed police or uniformed security, or you're in a military uniform, people are going to look at you and they're going to know that you should be there.
Right.
It's a normal accepted image. Plainclothes, if you're wearing blue jeans, t-shirt, shorts, t-shirt, Hawaiian shirt, whatever, you got a gun, people are going to be wondering who the heck is this guy? This don't look like the police. This doesn't look like security. So some identify friendly foe concerns, or how to mark yourself as same team. Those are things you need to think about.
Well, in that situation at O'Charlie's, when I rolled up, I wasn't directly in the parking lot when it happened. I don't know what led to that. For all I know, Russell could have pulled a knife, and that's why Taylor shot. And then Stice shoots in return. So then I roll up. I don't know really who the bad guy is, because no matter which point of view you're looking at, everybody's kind of at fault. That situation never should happen.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
Well, I'll bring that up under the KRS and criminal civil liability considerations. But how to mark yourself as being, as a professional. Off-duty cops. Most of them will carry their badge. Hopefully they're carrying their gun. A lot of people just kind of think the cops always got guns. And the opposite is true. There's not that. There's quite a few cops who don't even carry a gun when they're off duty. There's actually quite a few cops who the only reason why they even have a gun is because their employer gives it to them. If it weren't for that, they wouldn't have a gun. They don't even care for them. There's actually some anti-gun cops out there who don't believe anybody should own guns.
Right.
So there's going to be those types who won't have anything to be able to go do anything with anyway. But normally they all carry the badges and the ID cards. Security, there's some security guards out there who may or may not carry some type of credential on them when they're not working. Armed citizen, what can armed citizens do to signify that they're friendly? There's not really that much out there that you could use to signify that you're friendly. The best thing that you can do is when police make contact or police arrive on the scene is make yourself not look like a threat at all anymore. Right. Because they're not going to know who's who's doing what.
Well, and that's exactly why I didn't want my firearm to be visible when they showed up, because I'm in plain clothes. I mean, for all they know, I just shot this guy and now I'm trying to keep him from dying. Yeah. So definitely you got to be careful going in those situations. In a situation like the O'Charlie shooting, I got there, but you don't know who to say you're friendly to, because like I said, you don't know who the actual threat is. Yeah. So that situation's kind of hard. Active shooter is a little bit, I think, easier, like the one we were talking about in the Texas church shooting. Everybody in the church, there was 6 or 7, 8 different people who ended up drawing after Jack shot the threat and took him out. So, being in a church like that, you know your congregation, know the people, so that's easier. But active shooter situation like in the mall, heck, you don't know if I pull a gun against an active shooter, security guard might think I'm there with the active shooter and I'm part of it. So it's hard.
Security at the mall don't carry, so you ain't got to worry about getting smoke checked by them. Where was I at on the board? And another response option is not to respond at all. That's going to be an option that some people are going to advocate or throw out there is don't get involved. It's not your fight.
Right.
Don't make it your fight. And for some people, that may be a hard one for them to gravitate towards, because they got that inner drive to want to help. They want to do something. Right. But there could be some mitigating circumstances where you can't get involved. You got your little toddler in the back seat of your car. You're certainly, you don't want to bring your toddler with you to a gunfight.
And if my girls would have been with me, I wouldn't have had to second guess it. I wouldn't have gone over there.
Yeah.
My family, questions my decision making, and why would you insert yourself into a situation that doesn't directly involve you? Like I said, me, it wasn't really one of those things where I thought about it. I just took off.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I said, having girls in the car with me, I wouldn't have done it. But they were at their grandparents, so I didn't have to worry about them being put in harm's way. So, every situation, there are different scenarios that can lead to different decisions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's always hard to do a what-if scenario because there's so many variables that go into it. The people who get to ask the what-if who get to ask the what if questions have the easiest job, so to speak, because they only get to use a few words to ask a question, and to answer it, you got to sometimes spit out a whole book
Right.
of words to, what do you mean what if? Okay, what if A, what if B, C, D?
You're right. There's
all
so
the
many
way.
different scenarios.
Yeah.
I mean, basically an infinite amount of scenarios.
Because I was thinking about it myself. I was like, what if I would have done if I was, over here in the Southern Lanes parking lot talking to a friend and heard that going off over there? Like, what would I have done? Well, it depends. Who's with me? What am I doing? There's so many variables that go into it. Criminal and civil liability, getting involved in stuff. So I'll be talking about Kentucky law. I know other state laws are a little bit different. Some state laws are very different. But as far as Kentucky goes, KRS, use of force laws, there's some language in there for if, let's say, for example, you are out and about and someone pulls out a toy gun and points it at you, and you, believing that you're about to be shot and killed by someone, whip out your gun and you shoot and kill them, and then come to find out that person had a fake gun. Well, you're protected under the law, even though you're wrong in your thoughts. When you use force in the protection of another, the language of the law gets pretty specific, and it says as the circumstances as they are. So using that same scenario, you come across someone pointing a gun at somebody, and you think that they're going to shoot and kill them. You pull your gun out and you shoot and kill that person. Well, you've now just shot and killed a plainclothes police officer trying to apprehend a felon. You're not covered under that law. And so those are that's the big things you need to take into consideration if you're wanting to get yourself involved in incidents. Is that right there? What are you opening yourself up to criminally and civilly? And what do you know about what's going on? If again, it's going back into the what if and what you get to see. If you're there from the moment it starts and you've got pretty good idea of the players involved and what's going on, and you can make that decision to get involved, okay, sure, if that's your decision. If it's you're coming in on the tail end of the matter and you're coming around and you just hear gunshots and you get there and there's people with guns out, you have no idea what's going on. And in a high stress dynamic situation, the adrenaline's flowing and everything at tunnel vision, it can be a recipe for a disaster. Calling 911. So calling 911 has to be done at some point. Calling 911 is a good chance for you to be able to identify yourself as the good guy. You can, or be able to identify who the bad guy is. The bad guy's wearing blue jeans and a red Coca-Cola shirt or something like that. I'm the good guy. I'm wearing black pants and a blue t-shirt. I'm giving first aid. You have that chance to identify, the players. That way, at least you're not, getting popped right off the bat.
Right.
You can also, of course, update the dispatch to what's going on, kind of like following the salute, size of what's going on, the activity, location, who they are as far as what they look like. The time frame involved, this was 5 minutes ago, this was 10 minutes ago, this is happening right now. What they've got, does it look like they got a rifle, shotgun, pistol, they got chest rig and helmet on? Like, you can get that information out there. That way those responding officers know ahead of time what they're going to be getting into, and they can ballpark it as they're getting there. But another thing to be thinking about if and when you do call 911 is those 911 calls are being recorded.
Right.
So anything you say will be used against you. So that's something you guys need to keep in mind there. Reacting to police. So if you're obviously in uniformed, if you're the police, should be the other police aren't going to be pointing their guns at you. Security, same. If you're plain clothes, usually the protocol for any agency or company anywhere is if you're in plain clothes and uniformed people show up, the uniformed people take precedence. they're the ones in charge. So if you're being told to get down, you're getting down.
Right.
If you're told to drop the gun, you're immediately going to drop it. You're not going to take your time to lay it preciously on the ground. Who cares if you get it scratched up? It's a tool. It's a hammer.
Exactly.
So just drop that thing. Drop it like it's hot. Because when the police get there, they're not going to have any idea who you are. They don't know you're the good guy who just saved everybody. They don't know. For all they know, you're the bad guy.
Right.
The only thing they do know is the only people they know who are the good guys are the ones who look just like them, wearing the same badge, wearing the same patch. That's the only ones they know who are good. Everyone else is suspect until they've cleared them.
Right.
There was some funny saying that I heard a while back. In God we trust. Everyone else gets run through NCIC or something like that. So that's their mindset. Going into medical, pre-hospital care, or first aid, or tactical combat casualty care, or TCCC, whatever you want to call it. My thoughts are, if you're going to be carrying a gun, you need to be carrying medical equipment, or have medical equipment readily available to you. If you have the means to induce trauma, you should have the means to reduce trauma.
Right.
Training is offered. You can find basic first aid classes anywhere, basic CPR classes anywhere. You can go through commercial training companies and take a little bit more advanced medical training, where you learn how to do close to EMT basic type stuff, learning how to apply tourniquets, and learning how to insert nasopharyngeal airways and things of that nature. You just have to seek those out. Medical gear, is it going to be something that you carry on you, or is it going to be something you keep in your vehicle, and what do you need? This is where I like to tell people that there is a difference between a first aid kit and a trauma kit. One's a boo-boo kit, one's for trauma. If you go to Walmart and you go buy a first aid kit, chances are the only thing that's going to be in there is some Band-Aids, maybe a very light gauze wrap, and maybe a couple gauze pads. A Band-Aid is not going to do you any good for stab wounds or bullet holes.
No.
You're going to need trauma gear for that. And you're going to have some knowledge of how to use that. So you can buy all the stuff you can get your hands on, but if you don't know how to use it, it's almost kind of, it is almost kind of useless to you. But even if you don't know how to use it, maybe someone else does.
Right.
So that's where certain medical products come into play, or packages that come into play. There's kits out there that have like a decompression needle in it or something like that. And you'll hear people say, oh, well, you don't know how to use a decompression needle. You don't need to have that in there. True. Okay, fine. But that doesn't mean that there might be a nurse there, or there might be a doctor there who knows how to use that thing. So even if you don't know how to use all that stuff, you can still get it. But I highly implore people to seek that knowledge on how to use medical gear, because the fact of the matter is you're going to come across some type of traumatic incident more times than you are some type of like robbery or burglary type of thing. We are in our vehicles a lot around this part of the country. If you're in your vehicle a lot, obviously you're on the roadway a lot, and the fatality rate for car accidents is way up there. There's lots of car accidents every day, people getting hurt. So you're probably going to have more likelihood of using a bandage than ever whipping your gun out.
Oh yeah, you look at the statistics on the Department of Transportation. Traffic fatalities are way above the FBI statistics for people killed by guns each year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, just in 2017 alone, there was over 10,000 deaths by DUIs, and there was only like 400 gun deaths. So that's a huge difference.
It is. It is a lot. So medical gear is probably going to be one of those more important things that you can carry. But you're going to have to need the things to treat traumatic injuries. You just can't rely on just Band-Aids and a little boo-boo kit. You'll be wanting to be able to treat the person's air, or get their airway open, make sure they're breathing, and handle any type of hemorrhaging or anything like that. And then once you seek out that medical knowledge, once you have that knowledge, you can still improvise without the equipment. We'll go back to like, I'll just use this for example, this junctional tourniquet. Even if you don't have this thing, you could do something like take one of those rigid plastic bottles, like a Gatorade Powerade bottle or like a tumbler, and lay it right there, and then put something like a strap over it and start ratcheting down and apply enough pressure right in there that, you could have a good effect out of it. Or a helmet. You can take someone's helmet off and lay that helmet right down in there and start pressing on it and start to occlude that airway. You can make improvised tourniquets. Even if you don't have gauze or anything like that, you can use clothing. Even in last ditch medicine, you can even use dirt to pack a wound. One of the big things with medical is scene safety. So every person who does emergency services, whether it be fire, rescue, EMS, police, whatever, the big talking point or big thing is always about scene safety. Am I safe? Are you safe? Is everybody safe? And that's one thing you need to take into consideration when you go to start to provide medical care to people. Are you safe? And the biggest thing of that is gloves. We don't know what people are contaminated with, what kind of pathogens are in them. So gloves is going to be a very important thing. But when it comes to scene safety, another point of that is EMS will sometimes not even come directly to the scene until the police say it's safe for them to arrive.
Right.
So it could be several minutes, and the ambulance could be sitting down the road. You can see their lights turned on, and they're not coming to you until the police get on the radio and say it's safe for them to come up there. And that's a big thing. So when you think about the Pulse nightclub shooting, the shooting out there at Las Vegas, Columbine, these active killer events, there were people who had survivable wounds, but they bled to death because no one got to them in time to render any type of pre-hospital care. Even if they had people there with them, those people just didn't know what to do, and they held their hand and they comforted them. But nonetheless, they just sat there while they died.
That's also why it's important for you to realize, or understand how to treat yourself.
Yes.
Because, you could get stuck in a hypothetical mall shooting where you get shot in the leg. Mm-hmm. Well, not everybody's going to be carrying a tourniquet on them all the time. Well, guess what? Take your belt out and use it as a tourniquet to stop the bleeding enough until you can get to first aid or first responders. Because, like you said, they can't just run and put their own lives in danger, because if they die, then everybody else that's shot is going to die too. Yep. So definitely knowing how to treat yourself is a big part of it.
And going back into that, mass casualty care, local resources are going to be overwhelmed extremely quickly in a mass casualty incident. So might not be enough people to come around to treat you.
Right.
They may be treating the first 10 people before they ever get to you. And that's happened in some of those other cases too. They just did not have enough resources to go around to treat everybody. We talked about EMS response times, ballistics. So going back to this chart here, you said that a possible entry wound here and a possible exit wound there. That's one thing I always want to point out to people is bullets are unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do when they hit a target. Like when I do the vehicle classes, when we get to the point of shooting through windshields, I'm like, hey, you don't know where that bullet's going. There's no set rule for what that bullet's going to do when it hits glass, laminate glass. It can either go to the side, left or right a little bit, go up and down a little bit. It could be a few millimeters off. It could be a few inches off. It could be a few feet off. Like, you just have no idea what bullets are going to do when they hit barriers or when they hit targets. There's been people who have a flat trajectory coming in, enters, but then the bullet does something weird, like shoop, goes up the spine into the head or something like that, or goes whoop, out the side and at an upward angle or a downward angle. You just have no idea what bullets are going to do. Just because you see one wound in one location doesn't mean that's the extent of their injuries. They could have an exit wound all the way down here for all you know. So that's why you need to be able to check the person. That's where your medical training will come into play for checking for things like DCAT, BTLS, and doing a patient assessment. That's about it that I have on my talking points. We covered the timeline of what went over, responding to armed incidents or shots fired incidents, whatever you want to call it. And we talked about medical stuff. Again, I can't implore enough for people to carry medical gear with them at all times. You can either have stuff that's in your vehicle, or you can have something like this. It's a ankle medical holster where you can just wear it around your ankle and you can take it with it everywhere you go. I have a video on this that I highly implore you to watch, but this pouch right here has a tourniquet, some compressed gauze, and some other goodies to be able to treat traumatic injuries. And I don't even have to rely on what's in my vehicle, especially if I'm not even in my car. Say I rode with someone else, this is coming with me at all times. So get out there, seek the knowledge. Learning never ends. Get as much medical training as you can get, firearms training you can get. You got anything else you want to point out or talk about?
Last thing I'm going to touch on is, you talked about scene security, making sure the threats, gone. I'll be the first to admit, when I was there, waiting on the police to get there, I was nervous. You don't know if somebody's coming back with another gun to shoot somebody else. So, cops today have a really bad, image by the public that they're bad, that cops are bad, that cops are out to shoot people. That's not the case. You've got bad eggs in every profession. Majority of cops are not bad. They are there to do their job. And, I was very, very relieved when they showed up, because it was that sense of, okay, good, somebody else is here. I don't have to worry about somebody coming back and shooting me while I'm trying to stop somebody from bleeding to death. So, the perception of cops are bad is something that bothers me in today's society.
Yes.
They're not. Like I said, you've got some that are, but for the most part, cops are there and they're doing their job. So I think people need to kind of view things differently with police officers and other first responders. They have a job to do, and 99% of them are there to do the job the right way. So that's my last touching point.
All right. This is Earl Henderson with Primordial Defense. If you got any comments or questions, go ahead and do them in the comment section. I would implore you to do it on the Facebook side. Don't sign in to the YouTube part of it and go through comments a whole lot. If you're wanting a quick response, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you do it on the Facebook side, and you'll get a quicker response that way. If you got any questions, shoot me a message. If you have any training needs, whether it be regular firearms training like concealed carry, or some more advanced firearms training, or even medical training, learning how to use the things that are inside here like tourniquets and stuff like that, go ahead and hit me up, let me know, and we'll get that class started for you. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.